Hello, Internet. My name is Chamomile.
And I'm Requiem.
So, where exactly have you brought me?
What? I just, I thought after Kingmaker, we need some time to decompress. So, monster cockfighting.
They
Is
just
that not a thing in Utah?
not really know. I mean, for starters, gambling of any kind is banned. That's real. Look it up. Uh, there's a famous casino that is like 10 feet across the border into Nevada.
That's, I mean, it would be Nevada.
So that is a dragon child in the arena. Do I
It's a
see that correctly?
wormling. Thank you very much.
Ah,
The whole thing with the D&D thing of wormling, uh, like just have some low CR dragons.
right. Yeah. No.
Also, I don't think anyone ever wants to fight a small dragon. Like I realize they get pretty small in the some of the source material, but like Dragon probably should just start at large.
Proper dragons. Yeah. I think there is room for dragon-like foes who are like wolf size, but they should be distinct from dragons. They should be drakes or something.
Yeah, there's no need
Um,
to have baby dragons.
and
I have in general,
proper dragons should be more intimidating than that. I think. Not
yeah.
much
I
of
and
any.
personally,
It's not like anyone feels the need to have stats for baby orcs.
yeah. Oh, you didn't hear about the baby orc supplement?
And it's funny because I say that, but mild spoilers for Bramble and Garden, but it does actually have stats for orc children. That said, if you end up fighting them, you have made some mistakes.
Yikes!
It's actually like it's uh, something where like well, as I was assembling it, I kind of decided, and it's for starters, it's not something you're especially likely to run into. Like there's enough warning signs of where this is going that actually, oh good, a toddler fight. Yeah, these are practically identical, but I'm gonna put 40 on the I'm gonna put 40 on the black dragon wormling. I'm just immediately abandoning my principles on this. Uh, but yeah, there's plenty of warning signs that you're going down a pretty dark path before you get there, and I don't even know for sure if Bramble and Garden is going to come to market. Not for this reason, but just because I don't know how viable my adventures really are in terms of being worth the effort. They're definitely fairly
uh,
popular, but their audience is so niche. I actually think they would do a lot better if I had access to better marketing. But without access to better marketing, I can't prove that. So, goddamn, my twitchy fingers are going to be particularly
as
annoying
long,
in this.
yeah. As long as we're talking about products you produce, and now that it is finally out, do you want to talk about Dark Lord?
It's out to backers. By the time this goes
Okay.
live, it might be out to on the market. But just to finish the thought, like I did ultimately decide that having the orc children be actually statted out was actually important, which it will make sense in context if you read the adventure if that comes out. I don't want to provide any major spoilers to this, but I am happy to discuss the concept in general because the adventure itself will probably need to come with a content warning for that reason.
Yeah.
It is broadly agreed that harm to children is something you should have a content warning about. That makes sense to me, and although I do think that the art demands it in this case, again for reasons that I don't want to get into because it gets deep into spoiler territory of exactly how that situation comes up. But yeah, suffice to say that the intended reaction is that when players get there, this is supposed to be sort of the final smack in the face of you done goofed. And it hasn't exactly been subtle up to that point either. So But yeah, let's talk about Dark Lord, which is considerably more lighthearted, ironically enough. I didn't put a bet on this, did I? Oh well. In fairness, I probably would have bet wrong. I usually bet on Swarm. Swarm is usually a pretty safe bet.
So, are there playable hags in Dark Lord?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm sold. What is the actual premise of Dark Lord, though?
Okay, Dark Lord is a tabletop RPG where you are the big bad evil guy. It's been a couple of months now since I recorded all the Kickstarter videos, but I've still got some of the advertising copy in me.
Gotta bet on the twink.
Yeah, for starters, got to bet on the twink, but also betting on multi-attack is usually a pretty safe bet. Which, by the way, the bandit captain canonically a twink. Or at least originally. At this point, the artist has said that she is gonna lean into the misconception of, with that ponytail there, of the twink or the bandit captain as a woman, and make them non-binary and ambiguous. But, for the record, the artist has said on the Discord, originally supposed to be a twink. Also has a multi-attack, considerably more HP. The attack to AC ratio is much better for the Wormling, but don't try to kite him. He has a breath weapon. You're killing me. But yeah, Dark Lord, a tabletop role-playing game where you are the big bad evil guy. So it originated from. I love the idea of, I forget what it's called, Covenant play, I think, in Ars Magica, where at any given time only one person is playing their wizard, and everyone else is playing, some mundane grunts for the wizard. And I love this idea that you sort of take turns being the biggest one in the room, because then that makes your character really feel special, right? You aren't constantly surrounded by other superpowered adventurers, which means you aren't, that doesn't become your norm. But of course, the problem with Ars Magica, I mean, for starters, it's a very specific premise that, you are a wizard in a historical fantasy Europe and Middle East, and it's a pretty cool sounding premise in some ways, but it's also just extremely specific. So but also I felt like playing the Grogs it felt too much like you were just cooling your heels until it was your turn to be awesome. You spend a minimum of 2/3 of the time in a party of 3 just waiting for your turn, paying your dues before you get to be the awesome guy. Which, yep, same deal as before, bet twink.
Yep.
And so while I was thinking about it, and this was sort of evolved out of my thoughts of RPGs that break the norm of the standard party setup in general. One of them was Ars Magica. Another one was Paranoia. In Ars Magica, it takes the idea of game balance and says, nah, fuck that. One of you at a time will always be the coolest guy, but we'll rotate parties so that who gets to be the coolest guy in this adventure changes, and everyone gets their turn. And then Paranoia, it takes the idea of we're all cooperating together and throws that out the window and says, yeah, we have a collective goal and we need to achieve that goal, but also we all have a bunch of secret objectives that are potentially in competition with each other, and because they're secret, even if you don't know they're in competition with each other, you don't want to admit yours, because then you've painted a target on your back for whoever is secretly your enemy, which means even if every secret objective can be achieved altogether, that's not reliably the case, so you'll end up stabbing each other all in the back just to stop them from stabbing you in the back. It is hilarious madcap fun. And it's a situation where you know, it works very well with feeling disempowered and yet still having a great time. And so, my idea was basically, well, we could combine these two, have the competitive aspect of paranoia amongst the Grogs, have the rotating central figure, main character sort of thing, aspect of Ars Magica. So one player is essentially in the role of friend computer in a paranoia game, except that you are also, an...
Cam, bet all your money. Oh god, Hag vs. Werewolf! I don't know what to do.
Hag's the better bet. Slightly more HP, an extremely good AC to attack lineup. The werewolf does have multi-attack, but Hag is the better bet. Hag is pretty good in her CR. Green Hag is. I realized that your conflict had absolutely nothing to do with the statistical lineup of either side, but I am, the game dev gameplay guy of this, so I am going to be a ruthless min-maxing mercenary about all this.
Maybe they can work out their differences.
Well, the Hag is opening up a dialogue. Unfortunately, the dialogue does appear to be about how much the werewolf sucks, but...
No!
Now, it's possible the werewolf was running up to the Hag to, just give her a hug and try to hug the differences out, but we'll never know for sure, because when he got up to her, she immediately tore a chunk out of his shoulder, which makes me more sympathetic to the werewolf, actually. But, don't let me down, Mother Pixels. But yeah, so Dark Lord then is a game where you are playing as a Dark Lord like the Lich Queen, the Ice Queen, the Fallen Seraphim was the Kickstarter backer one. I think that one turned out pretty good. It's funny, I've done a couple of Kickstarters now. Going into it, I was really worried that the backer content would be of just, uniformly very low quality. This has not, for the most part, been the case, which has been a pleasant surprise because, it's just the whole never read the comments thing. I was very concerned about soliciting the internet for feedback, but it does seem like, when you gotta pay so much money, when I say so much, I don't mean that it's a large amount, just that, when you have to pay an amount of money to get your thing included in the book, people do seem to put a little bit more thought into it, which is nice. I have, and I'm not going to name any specifics because that would be unprofessional and uncouth. I have occasionally had things where it's like, okay, I've got to try and represent this as best as I can, while at the same time acknowledging that this is someone's weird fetish, and I can't just include that in the book straight. But that has been the exception rather than the rule, which has been a very pleasant surprise. But yeah, so, you play as some kind of Dark Lord, you have a number of minions. The other players are all playing your minions. If you are the Lich King, there'll be ghouls and skeletons and vampires and such. If you are playing as the Sahagin High Priestess, then you've got a bunch of Sahagin and Marrow and other aquatic-based monsters. So, you get to play as the bad guys. The Fey Queen has a hag in her domain. And a werewolf, actually. There's internecine conflict in the forest domain. We're all on the same side here, guys. But also, go Hag. I bet a lot of money on you.
Oh, she might lose.
Yeah, no, this one is a lot closer than... Well, and I mean, multi-attack is really good. So this was always a possibility.
I also bet a lot of money on Mother Pixel. And she won!
Yes!
All right, now kiss and make up. Kiss and make up. I think he's dead.
I mean, I don't think that's going to stop a Hag from kissing and making up.
Now, obviously, since the forest domain has werewolves and hags, it is the best domain, but what is your favorite domain?
I like the Crypts domain, which is led by... And by the way, each domain does actually have 2 leaders. I tend to refer to them by their Dark Lord, just because characters are more interesting than places, even when the places are really cool, you know? A good character is just more compelling. And I say that as someone who is better at writing setting than at writing character. I'm definitely, in terms of where my strengths lie, I'm setting first, character second, and my plotting is actually kind of weak. I have to rely on formula a lot for that, and, I basically just ask people to quietly ignore that for the sake of my setting and characters, which they usually do. So, that works out for me. But it is undeniably true that, I don't know if this has always been true, but at least in the current market, character is king. There's always going to be a niche for people, especially in sci-fi, who just love a good setting, and also to a lesser extent fantasy. But people love a good character. So I tend to refer to the Dark Lords by their character, that I will refer to the Lich King instead of the Crypts domain, but it is important to note there are alternate Dark Lords for at least one for every single domain. So, for example, in the Crypts, which I'm going to use as the example because it is clearly the best domain, you can have the Lich King, but you can also have the Death Knight be your Dark Lord. Taking the example of the Forest domain, just to indulge Requiem for a bit, you can have the Fey Queen, but you can also have the Lord of the Hunt, who is a satyr lord type person. So yes. Another thing that I try to do with Dark Lord, and I am just kind of rambling here, but whatever, this is a Knight Manticore fight, we're going to be here for a hot second. Another thing I do with Dark Lord is sort of in the spirit of trying to take ideas that sound cool but never had a whole lot of mainstream appeal and putting them into a context where they work. Rolling 3d6 down the line to just see what you get is a compelling idea, and if you're introducing someone to an RPG and you say, okay, we're going to make you a character, here, roll these dice, it feels like they're immediately playing the game, which is good. No. Oh well.
Yeah, I set that fight out.
I'm doing my best not to sit any fights out. If I'm really on a roll with the conversation for the entire betting period, I might, miss one by mistake, but for the sake of preserving interest, I'm trying to do... Okay, so... Winter Wolf needs a 9 to hit. White needs a 10 to hit. The white does not resist the cold damage of the Winter Wolf.
It's got multi-attack, though.
Yeah, white has a multi-attack. And the crowd definitely favors the white. I'm going to go with the wisdom of the crowd on this one.
Now, let's say I'm really into insect screeching. Does Dark Lord have anything to offer me?
It does indeed. So as we started getting into, the Dark Lord Kickstarter was very successful, by the way. $15,000 raised. Absolutely fantastic. Thanks to everyone who participated. I was able to make this really big and really expansive, really do the concept a lot of justice. Or injustice, as the case may be, just thematically. But yes, so one of the Dark Lords I was able to add was the Hive Queen, who just leads a giant swarm of insects. And the reason why I liked that one is because I love bug swarms as an enemy. But the reason why I think it's a good inclusion in the game is because she really turns a lot of the fundamental assumptions on their head. So the way that, or the primary way at least, that competition amongst the minions is encouraged is there is the favor race, which is that the Dark Lord has a certain limited amount of favor to give out to their minions, and whoever has the most at the end of the adventure gets some mana points for the Dark Lord that they play when their turn comes up, including in the domain phase, which is where mana is spent exclusively, yes, There were at one point rules for spending it in adventures, but I wrote those out because that's a trap option. I was trying to find a way to balance them. I couldn't figure it out, so ultimately I just said, well, the domain phase expenditures are much more interesting. You can spend them to unlock more powers, which does not actually have to be done during the domain phase, so that's actually one way of spending them sort of during an adventure. Also, I lost that. Yeah, no, I'm betting against the Twink on this one. Etten hits much harder, has a multi-attack. The
Oh, it is also CR4. That was a mistake on my part.
Oh, holy shit, the Bandit Captain got all the way to CR4. They're doing pretty well. But yeah, so this favor race idea sort of encourages minions to be in competition with each other, especially because favor is assigned to a minion, not to a player. So if if someone is pulling away in the favor race to the point where you don't think you can catch up, you can conspire to kill them, and then you'll be competitive in the race again with the front runner knocked off. And there are a variety of ways in which this is facilitated by the mechanics. If you want details on this, by the way, if you just want the pure straight dope on Dark Lord, then there are a bunch of updates released during the campaign, so you'll have to scroll down to the bottom to get to them. But there were a ton of updates about the weird gameplay mechanics that are used to provide different incentives to set up this alternate party structure. Because it was very important to me to make minion play interesting. That's what I felt Ars Magica was missing, is that playing as the wizard was great, but playing as the grog felt like waiting your turn. And I wanted to change that. So it was very much a goal to have playing as a minion should be madcap fun, and whereas playing as a Dark Lord is the more traditional power fantasy where you are in command, you are the adventure you're on, your goal is to acquire territory or loot or something to build up your dark domain. That's the primary means of character advancement as a Dark Lord, is that you build a mightier and mightier evil kingdom, which gives you various bonuses in the adventures you go on, and then the adventures you go on give you a bunch of loot and turf that you can build more things on that benefit you in the domain phase. So it's that's the feedback loop for the Dark Lord, and the minion is all just about backstabbing and infighting, which brings us back around. Oh, thank God. Etten, you had me worried there for a second, but you came through in the end. But yeah, this brings us back around to the Hive Queen, who turns that on its head. This is probably not a great place to start. She's, okay, I'm in the middle of a flow here, so I'm just going to bet on Lamia, because she's a higher CR, which is a terrible idea when it's the Coatl, because the Coatl is badly under CR'd. But yes, the Hive Queen may not have been the best place to start, but we're doing this freestyle, so, some rough edges are to be expected. Because having explained the normal flow of things, I can now explain how the Hive Queen turns that on its head. Instead of people getting a mana point for their Dark Lord, or several, by winning a favor race in competition with other minions, the Hive Queen has a series of collective goals, and everyone in the party gets mana points for based on the number of these collective goals that are achieved. And the goals are pretty broad. They're things like killing some number of enemies based on the size of the party, and so I forget exactly what they are, but they're flexible enough that they can be applied to basically any adventure. So yes, the Hive Queen provides is a purely cooperative domain, which means that it can be a very nice break. And if you've got that one guy in the group who is maybe a little bit less comfortable with the backstabbing competitive nature of the game, then the Hive Queen can sort of make them feel more comfortable with it, because even though they do have to be at least comfortable enough with it that they are okay with that being the default in every other dark domain, which they will spend somewhere between 2/3 to 5/6 of their times. So yeah, they have to, at minimum, be okay with that. But if someone really wants to play cooperatively, then they can have as their main character a creature who is a Dark Lord, rather, whose creatures are all very cooperative with each other. You don't have to manage your minions in such a way as to sort of keep things competitive so that they are constantly, crab bucketing each other. Yeah, that was a bit of a ramble, but okay, the Chul's ludicrous advantage has been fixed. There used to be a bug where the grapple would also restrain. But still has a much better attack AC ratio, still has more HP, and still has a multi-attack. Hellhound does have Fire Breath, but I'm going to still say Chul is the better answer here. Oh, and while I'm rambling about Dark Lord, which I do kind of feel like I'm just doing a lamer version of the Kickstarter videos here, but one more thing on the subject is another one of the things that I wanted to sort of try and make more appealing to the mainstream, to the average player, to someone who's only ever played 5th edition, is the idea of that 3d6 roll in order, right? I got halfway into this before wandering off. Minions are, of course, totally expendable, which is good for, this kind of 3d6 roll in order thing. Because they are very quick and easy to build. They have extremely simple character classes. Oh, no, he got a crit because the Hellhound is paralyzed. I was briefly confused that he got a crit on an 18. Like, what? But yeah, so because, the idea with minions is that you're probably going to go through possibly 2 or 3 within the span of a single adventure if you roll up weak ones. Betting on poison. And Petrifying Gaze, for that matter. So it has a very OSR, 3d6 roll in order, and your stats are a big deal kind of character creation system to it. It's every dark domain has, as we have implied so far, its own set of character classes that you can play as. Each character class has a specific race associated with it, which is partly to help stay on theme, so you don't get like an elf ranger showing up in the Lich King's domain, right? You got to be a skeleton or a ghoul or something. And it's also partly because that makes character creation even faster, right? And in order to play a certain class, you have to qualify for certain statistical prerequisites, which means that oh wow, Phase Spider has considerably more poison than the Basilisk does. I did not read that properly.
Yikes.
But yeah, so you get that thing where you roll 3d6 in order, and if you get a crap roll, you're stuck with the crap default class, the fodder class. Every domain has one. Goblin fodder, skeleton fodder, elf fodder, cultist fodder. They're all basically the same.
No, there is no hag fodder because hags are just that good.
Yeah, and then there are some races that they are fairly powerful just for being what they are. Things like trolls and giants. And a hag is one of them. The idea of hag as a race is kind of weird, but it's the D&D standard, and I wanted to keep the setting very recognizable. Going with Were Tiger. He's got a multi-attack, and also he just looks badass with those two scimitars. Uh, but yeah, I wanted to keep things very familiar. Dark Lord is doing a bunch of weird things with the way the party lineup works, and that there's a whole new system of domain rules that you have to grapple with. Basically, it's already doing enough new weird things that I wanted the setting to be as recognizable as possible. I did try to make sure that the setting would be interesting as much as possible, but within the constraints of still being very, very recognizable. It's got elves, it's got dwarves, and like the dwarves have friends who are giants. The gnomes have these magitech constructs that they're like unearthing from a fallen empire and refurbishing. And these are all the dwarves and elves and gnomes, of course, are your enemies because you are the Dark Lord. So the traditional good guy races are now bad guys for the most part. The Fey Queen does have elves on her side, for example. I don't think anyone has dwarves on their side, but a dwarf dark domain would make a lot of sense. I just didn't get around to writing one. There were only so many that I could fit in there. This book is already overstuffed, by the way. The PDF version is over 600 pages long. I could probably get that under 600 pages if I edited the art down a little bit, or rather, if I paid my formatting person to edit the art down a little bit. But ultimately, I wouldn't be able to shave off more than maybe 10 or 15% of the total length, so I am considering options on what I'm going to do for the print version, but come on, yes, Were Tiger got it in clutch.
Nice.
Right-click Twitch in celebration.
All right, a baby dragon or a giant scorpion? A baby dragon should be able to handle a bet. I feel like should.
Yeah, but statistically speaking, the giant scorpion has got a shit ton of poison, so I'm going to bet on that. Wisdom of the Crowd does say that the Wyrmling has the advantage here, and it is a higher CR, so it's supposed to be stronger. At the same time, the crowd seems a little bit indecisive. It's favoring the Wyrmling, but only by a little. And now it's actually evened out. Of course, you do get sometimes some people will bet on the underdog just because, if the odds are strongly in the favor of one side, then, you can potentially win a whole lot of money, since the payoff for Goblin bet is based on the number of bettors on either side, right? So, if Scorpion does win, then because Scorpion has slightly better odds, that means I'm not actually going to double the money that I put in. It's going to be slightly less than double. 90%, I think, if I'm doing the math right on that, but I'm actually not sure exactly how odds are calculated, or payouts are calculated based on odds. Giant Scorpion is another one of those ones that used to be extremely overpowered because of the bug where all grapples would also restrain the enemy. But, the sting on its own is still pretty good. I don't know, that Red Dragon Fire Breath might bring it home, though. I was on about something before getting sidetracked by the fight.
How long it is.
Oh, yeah. So I may end up splitting it into multiple smaller bits, but yeah, even as long as it is, there's still more stuff that I could add, but it is a massive RPG already. It is of similar length to the Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide for 5th edition put together. So it's actually slightly longer than that. It's that plus maybe a third or so of the monster manual.
Now let's say I wanna convert people over to the side of evil instead of just stabbing them in the face. Is that an option?
Oh yes, the dark domains are balanced against each other, right? No dark domain is meant to be noticeably more powerful than the others, although it's not as big of a deal as they are because they aren't working together in the same party. You still don't want someone to feel like they're weaker than the other Dark Lords. Coatl is as overpowered as ever because their constrict actually does grapple and restrain. That's just the rules. It's not a bug on him. So, Coatl, ludicrously good for their CR. Always bet on Coatl in CR4. Easy money. Everyone knows this, though, so the odds ratio is always terrible. But
Yeah.
you will get a payout almost extremely reliably. They're planning on fixing that, by the way. They consider that a problem. I have put in a suggestion that instead of having strictly CR-based things, they should have leagues named after a representative member of the CR, but not necessarily named after the CR itself. So instead of having a CR4 league, for example, it would have, I forget what my CR4 representative was, but but yeah, so I know that CR5 is the Troll League, I called it. And so you can talk about things like, oh yeah, the Coatl, despite being CR4, should clearly be in the Troll League with a bunch of CR5 monsters.
Yeah.
Because that way we don't have to nerf the Coatl. It should match its stats in the original as much as possible. That way we don't have to change the way its CR is displayed, which again should match the original as much as possible. And I say we, to be clear, I'm not on the development team. I'm just speaking like as the game's community. I don't think we should do that. But yeah. Even with as much content as was in Dark Lord, there is yet more that could be added, so I'm hopeful that it'll be popular enough to justify that. I've got extra light realms that I think would be cool. Like, I think an Order of Elemental Balance would be a neat idea. There's references to a sort of paladins and clerics kind of city-state called Demerung. They show up in other locations. They have agents in other locations going around. If you meet cleric or paladin types in other light realms, they are usually fluffed as answering to the government of Damarung, but I never wound up adding the actual location of Damarung because I had higher priorities. I didn't want to stuff the place with too many city-states because city-states are actually a bit of a nuisance to work with. Just because the way the domain phase works out, city-states take a long time to bring down, but then there's a huge reward for doing so. And if you have too many of those, then the domain phase becomes boring because you sit around doing nothing for too many rounds of it until finally, near the end of the campaign, you are suddenly flooded with resources.
Yeah.
So, both have multi-attack. Bearded Devil has a slightly better hit ratio. I am conflicted, but Wisdom of the Crowd is also conflicted. I'm going to bet on Bearded Devils because devils are awesome.
I voted on Wereboar because I'm legally required to.
So that applies to all lycanthropes, not just the werewolf?
Yes. Except when a hag shows up. Then I'm conflicted. If it's a hag versus a non-werewolf lycanthrope, I bet on the hag. But if it's a hag versus a werewolf, I don't know what to do and I cry.
Sort of like one of those situations where, you got a feudal lord who owes fealty to two other lords. And so when those lords go to battle, then they'll both call up their levy from your lands, but, you've got two oaths of loyalty that are now in conflict.
What I did the last time is I pickpocketed 100 gold from your wallet and I bet on the hag.
Can you do that?
I mean, I did, so clearly.
Apparently.
I'm keeping the winnings, though. But yeah, additional content. So the clerics and paladins light realm, Lord of
Yeah,
Elemental Balance.
a Triton Kingdom, because there's a couple of light realms that I don't have an obvious nemesis, or a couple of dark domains rather that don't have an obvious nemesis, and one of them is the Sahagan High Priestess. Really needs like a Merfolk Kingdom or a Triton Kingdom or something to serve as their nemesis. The Black Prince and the Lord of the Damned don't really have a holy angels type of, and the Fallen Seraphim for that matter, don't really have a fallen angels sort of a, not a fallen angels, a holy angels kind of light realm to be their nemesis. There is Skyreach Kingdom, which is a knights and wizards place that serves as a decent nemesis for the Black Prince, but not really the Fallen Seraphim or especially the Lord of the Damned. So yeah, some kind of northern icy place. I haven't decided the details yet, but just the Ice Queen is another one. No clear nemesis. The Hive Queen also doesn't have an obvious nemesis, but I also don't have the first idea of what her nemesis would look like.
Mothra.
But yeah, so there's definitely some light realms that could be added. There's definitely some new dark domains that could be added. One of the things that the minions have. Gonna bet on multi attack over the toddler. But one of the things the minions have is they each get a secret objective, which it's again one of those things that should be able to be applicable to almost any adventure, and an obvious place for expansion would be there could be more of those, right? Because I think the ones that they have are fairly interesting. There is a 25% chance that you will get no secret objective at all, so people can say, "Oh, I don't have a secret objective," and of course everyone is going to say that, and on average, at least 2 or 3 of them will be lying. But it's perfectly plausible for each of them individually. Uh, and then some of the secret objectives are just kind of reckless. Like you're required to kill like every enemy you meet, which means that if someone, bringing this all the way back around, if someone is trying to do a stealth infiltration, or trying to Dark Lord is trying to subvert the light realm by like political means or whatever, because each of these light realms are set up, they have like a political order to them. They have a government, they have a structure, they have a culture and a motivation. So if you show up to a light realm and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to bother sacking this place. I'm just going to chat up the mayor, get him in my pocket, and convince him to swear fealty to me. Then it's not going to be as straightforward as that. That's a very oversimplified thing. But that is totally an option. These light realms are not set up as railroad adventures because it is very important that the Dark Lord be in charge. And in order for that to be true, they need to show up at a place, have a basic objective, which is basically, overcome the government of this place somehow, right? The two methods are broadly described as domination, where you kill all their guards and either destroy or capture their leadership. And at that point, it's assumed that you've just, the place is sacked, they can't put up meaningful resistance, and if you move an army in, you conquer them automatically, which is the standard means of conquering in Dark Lord. You can also do a mass combat, but it is recommended you avoid that where possible, because it gets repetitive after a while. So, mass combats are made a little bit less lucrative than doing things in skirmish combat. But then you can also go in and come on, it's a toddler. All you gotta do is hit this baby dragon one more time.
Yeah, it's a gold dragon toddler though.
It's true. Like, come on. 1 hit point left. Ha! But yeah, so you can have a Dark Lord who is trying to subvert a domain, using a lot of skill checks, a lot of subterfuge, using stealth to try and assassinate enemy leaders or steal enemy treasure. Like, if the only thing you're here for is the treasure, you just want to haul off a bunch of sweet loot back to your dark domain so you can use it to fund the construction of a new castle or whatever, then, maybe you just sneak in and take it. But then if one of your minions has a secret objective of just, like, killing everyone, then they might go running off and try to do that. Especially, early on, if they quote-unquote accidentally... Yeah, okay, Ghost is apparently invincible according to the chat, so I'm just going to go with that. This is so ludicrously lopsided that, alright, some people are taking the long odds, but at this point I assume just because there's a really good payout for it. Like, payout was 20-1 at one point, so
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of gold, though, so I'm going to stick with a safe bet, try and build up some reserves before I start betting on the underdog.
Do you want to borrow some of mine?
I mean, if I run out, then yes. For now, though, I think I'm good. I mean, I guess I want to quote-unquote borrow some of yours that you just stole from me. Can we do that?
I mean,
oh god, stop aging the dragon! It's not gonna work the same way as it does on, Nah. Yeah, another fun thing about Dark Lord, though, relevant to the subversion versus domination, different dark domains are optimized for different things. So you as Dark Lord not only get to decide what we're doing in this adventure, whether we want to go in straightforwardly and just smack them all in the face until they run out of guards and we are triumphant, or whether you want to go in on the sly and, sneak in or talk your way in, politic your way into victory. Not only do you get to choose that broadly, but also by picking your dark domain, you are picking what general sort of capabilities you have. Because each dark domain has its own distinct set of classes, it can very strongly direct what kinds of adventures you'll be good at and what kinds of approaches to an adventure you'll be good at. So, for example, the Troll King and his mountain domain are almost devoid of subversion. They are very strong on domination. They've got tons of fire magic and orcish warriors and, captains who can provide buffs and stuff. They're very flexible in combat, and they're very aggressive in combat. Very effective at it. But their skills and stuff, like, obviously they have skills at all, but their utility abilities are almost nil. As opposed to the Fey Queen, who is very strong on subversion. Her classes, again, they have attacks and weapons and stuff. They even get some combat abilities, but they're all focused very strongly around the ambush. Speaking of the ambush, I'm going to bet on the slambush. It's a bit risky, but if the doppelganger gets it off, it's usually victory in one. Haha! Doppelganger won initiative. That's
running forwards. Surprised.
Yep, now it's just if the doppelganger can hit. God damn it, all you need is a 10. Ah!
How much?
There it goes. This strongly favors the owlbear now.
How much money do you have left?
I am on 92 gold. With 40 invested in the doppelganger. I always bet 40. It's just easier to hit the button. If I get enough gold, I do eventually go to 100. But that would be like almost everything I have right now, so I'm a more cautious better than that. But yes, I'm still awaiting more broad playtest feedback. Right, my playtesting abilities as an indie dev were pretty limited in the production phase. Oh hey, that crit might put us back in the game. Not really. So now that Dark Lord is out to backers, I am getting. There's a lot of people who are starting up games. I'm very eager to hear from people about how those games go. It's the first time it's going to receive a proper NMOS playtest rather than mostly just me running numbers and rolling dice against myself. Um, so yes, people have also, because you're part of with the domain phase, you got to set up a little world map to conquer. People have been showing off the maps they've been making, and I'm very pleased by all of them. Less pleased by the outcome of this match.
It's fine. It's fine.
Ooh,
Ghost versus End.
And ghosts are resistant to physical damage, but not immune to it.
Which is weird.
Yeah, they should be. In all of my games, I always run them as immune. But,
Have you tried hitting a ghost with a hammer? Like, it goes right through him.
It's kind of a defining feature of ghosts, actually. Like, if you try to hit someone with a hammer and it goes right through them, there's like 70% odds you're looking at a ghost. And you've also probably made them at least a little bit angry. That is off to a good start. Okay, that's a less good start.
Youch.
Christ. That fear did nothing for us. And luckily the ghost does have pretty powerful attacks. If they can roll for shit. And we do still have fear on him. Unluckily we're one hit away from death now, so it's a one lucky roll to kill us. So hey, there it is. So at this point I feel like I should warn you that I may possibly not be able to pay off all my debts here, in which case I will be pulling out a gun and fighting my way out past the collectors.
Maybe we should just go now, like, rather than let you lose all your money.
Nah, that's cool. I think I can win this back. Lamia has multi-attack. Chul has a much better hit ratio. I'm going to bet Lamia. Because honestly, relying on the wisdom of the crowd has not gone well for me. So, Yeah. So I guess this has been the Chamomile Rambles About Dark Lord episode.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, I stand by the quality of the game itself for sure. If any of what I've said sounds interesting at all, I strongly recommend you go check out the Kickstarter page, which I will link in the description, because that has all those updates with a lot more polished and, collected explanations of a lot of its unique features. And if it has gotten out to Drive-Thru RPG by then, which it may or may not, it's going to be a week-ish before this comes out, so I don't know if I'll get out to Drive-Thru RPG in that time. But if it is out, I will also post a link to the actual store page so that you can give me money.